And welcome back. We're still, well, this is a process that will probably never end, but currently, I think this is maybe the fourth or fifth installment of the sim crossing and driving and flying performance series. So I have a few theories that I wanted to share with you. So the first one is, it has to do with textures loading into the cache. And if you use your texture console, you can see it here in Firestorm. It's also available in the default viewer. Right here it says VRAM, which right now is about half full. And this one here is cache, and that's almost empty because I just cleared my cache. So the theory that I want to share with you has to do with occlusion, which is a fancy word that basically means you can't see it. And if we look at our current draw distance, which is, it's 168. If I lower that, say, to about 100, you would think that would be okay for driving because, you know, you shouldn't really be seeing stuff. But notice, all I need to do is change my view angle, and already things start to want to load in. And this thing here that says BW, that means bandwidth. So that's actually stuff that's going from the internet into your computer at a very high rate of speed, simply because you turned around. And this is one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about. This has a lot to do with, I think, why we're having performance issues with vehicles. So at no point have we ever wanted to look inside of my buildings here. But if I suddenly cam in, you'll notice the textures are already loaded. They did not have to load once I cammed in. And I think that this is intentional. I think they do that so that people get this sort of seamless view all around them, rather than as soon as you go into a new location, everything is untextured. So what I wanted to do was go on a little drive, and while we do this drive, I'm going to have a look at what happens in the texture console, and also over here, which shows my process view of RAM. Right now the RAM is not very high at all. These are the cores of my CPU, and this is a general graph here. So as we go on a drive, you'll see the texture load is very dynamic, and it starts to fill up as we get within range of many textures. And some of the sims, let me put the map on, some of the sims as we go in this direction have so many textures that the load, as you can see, the bandwidth is way higher than what we had before. It's in the 10,000 range. It's normally limited to 3,000, but it will exceed that if necessary. And this is a pretty highly textured sim, so as we go into it, you can kind of see how the cache is filling up very rapidly. See, I've got a 10 gig cache. It's already gone from empty to probably 1.5 gigs. And this is the point I'm trying to make is, at no point am I ever planning on actually seeing most of the textures. I only want to see the textures that are immediately visible through my car window. Already my VRAM has almost gone up to maximum. So there is so much useless information being loaded into the cache. And how exactly does that work? Well, I don't know, since I'm not an expert on this, and I don't do viewer code, but I can test. And one of the things that I wanted to test, I'm going to try to get somewhere where we don't spy into someone's house, but I'll get to a place where it's mostly like shops and stuff where they don't mind if you're camming in. I think this is a shop. So let's say we stop right here, and now all you can see is this thing that says Jugo Art Gallery Museum, and there's a bit of art here, and that's it. And you got an exterior wall, and this is all that should load, right? However, I'm going to bet that now that we're in here, and see the bandwidth is still churning, as soon as I start camming around, every single one of these textures is already loaded. Every single one of these textures is already loaded in. Now, I did not actually want to see them until I started camming in, but I guess the assumption is that we all want that. But this is very bad for the car driver and for the boat driver, and to a lesser degree for the airplane driver, because all of this stuff it represents bandwidth that's being used in such a way that will fill up the cache and will make things difficult for you. And that's why you end up having these freezes and jitters and stutters and stuff like that have nothing to do with any kind of load. So you notice my RAM is fine, my processor use is fine, everything according to Process Lasso is showing up is just fine. So why is it that you get to some areas in Second Life and it's just plain not fine? Why do you end up with poor performance? Well, there's only so much that any physical system can handle as we're churning so much of this stuff in and out. You see the bandwidth load is going up to massive amounts. The cache is starting to fill up, and already we've had a bad sim crossing. Is this because of all of these textures that are constantly being loaded in? Now we're starting to get the gray. Now we've been through this before. We've seen how, see now my performance is starting to suffer, and yet nothing shows up here. It's still only 50% memory load. Responsiveness is good. Processor usage is not high. So why then do you see degraded performance? My FPS is still high. You see degraded performance for some reason that's not easy to tell. And I believe that is because if you imagine all of the electrons that have to travel through the architecture of your computer, with this massive amount of data that's churning, and constantly churning, the more you drive and the faster you go, the more the churning happens. This data is not traveling at an infinite speed. So with that much data, there is going to be a physical limitation of how quickly that much data can travel between CPU and RAM and the disk or the SSD or whatever it is you're using for storage and the GPU. All that stuff is constantly churning in and out, and most of it uselessly, because we're not actually looking at any of these textures. They're just getting loaded into the cache, they're loaded into VRAM, but we're not actually using them, we're not looking at them. See, I've got this thing here, there's a wall. All you should see is a wall. I go in here and you can see everything inside. I don't want to spy, so I'm not going to go any further, but you get the idea. It's like this everywhere. You can test this out yourself. You go on a drive, set a low draw distance of 100 or less, and you'll notice that so much of this stuff uselessly just keeps using up all of the resources that the physical architecture of your computer has. I do not believe that you can buy a powerful enough computer to overcome this deficit. So what am I proposing? Well, let's finish our drive, and I'll tell you what I'm proposing while I'm finishing up the drive. I've just put in a request at feedback.secondlife.com, which is the new sort of canny suggestion box thing that they have. And I'm hoping that more people are going to get on board with this. The suggestion is that they create an option. This thing should be a toggleable option. Here we go. See, now the performance has just really suffered. As soon as we went in here, I've never looked in the upstairs. It's completely loaded. All of that is loaded. So the suggestion is don't load anything into the cache, any textures, unless they are not occluded. And occluded means that it's blocked by something. So anything behind this wall over here, that's occluded. It's still loaded into the cache. So don't do that. Give us an option where the only stuff that gets loaded into the cache is stuff you can actually see from your viewpoint of your avatar, whether it's back here, or whether it's here, or whether it's here. The system can already tell what's occluded because it won't actually render stuff that's occluded, but it's loading them into the cache, and my cache is already almost up to half full on a very short drive. My performance is suffering as a result of this massive bandwidth load. And you'll notice that many of the issues happen as a result of this churning. You see how these processor cores, they have to process all this useless information that we don't actually need while we're driving a car. We're going to finish this little loop here, and I'll show you, I think, there's well, I guess I'll have to share a link or something, where there is a request at the Canny site. See, as soon as we get to within our draw distance range of this highly textured area, performance suffers, even though the FPS has never gone down. It's currently at 150 FPS. The FPS is great, but that's not what's causing the slowdown. What's causing the slowdown is my computer just, it's a very strong computer, but it's not enough to handle all of this churning. Like I said, it's always constantly churning between CPU and the RAM and the memory, the storage. It's easy enough just to call it the disk. They don't use disks anymore, but you know what I mean. So we're almost back. And that short drive resulted in our VRAM getting into the yellow. Our cache is now filled up to about 2/3. So if our drive was longer than this was only about 5 minutes. If it was a 10-minute drive, the cache would have been full. That's a 10 gigabyte cache. And most of that is absolutely useless. There's no way that I looked at more than about 2 gigabytes worth of images. But the cache loaded all of them. So what I'm suggesting, and what I'm hoping that you might do too, is to, now where is this thing? Here. Go to the feedback.secondlife.com and look for this suggestion here. Please add an option to only load textures into the cache which are not occluded. And so this is where you can give your vote, and I don't know whether they can do this. This is, of course, I'm not a developer of viewers, so whether it's possible or not, I can't say. But if it is possible, I think they should do it because it would help us a lot. Thanks again for stopping by.